Welcome to episode 27 of Runners Only with Dom Harvey. On this episode, Kane Brisco.
I wouldn't have picked myself sitting here as a farmer talking about gratitude or journaling or anything like that. It's quite an odd thing.
Kane is a Taranaki dairy farmer who has gained a huge following on social media with his Farm Fit movement that he started in 2019. In April 2022, he ran 100 kilometres in his gumboots and in the process raised over $20,000 for I Am Hope. And now, as well as being a farmer, he's a published author with a book called Tools for the Top Paddock. You can follow Kane on Instagram at farmfit_NZ. All right, let's go.
Hey, Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. This is Runners Only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is Runners Only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. Hey, Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Farm Fit, Kane Brisco. G'day, lad.
How's it going, mate? All right?
It's going all right. Brisco, you never buy better. How often do you hear that?
Constantly, yeah. That was my teenage years summed up, basically.
Was it? Was it actually?
How's your mum on the ad? Yeah.
That's so not original. Hey, it's great to have you in my house in what is going to be the podcast studio. I was thinking about it just as I got you from the front door and brought you in here. Our lives probably couldn't be more different in so many ways. I'm in an apartment like a couple of hundred metres down the road from Sky City. You're in rural Taranaki.
Yeah. It is two worlds colliding at the moment, Dom. Yeah. It's a pretty. It's always a strange feeling when I come to Auckland. Actually, just seeing so many people in one spot. And like we messaged earlier, it's actually a novelty for my kids to see buildings. Like this. Everyone else in Auckland's probably sick of it, but it's pretty exciting for them, actually. Yeah,
and I'd imagine, other things, like it's probably quite terrifying for your kids being on the motorway in an Uber with cars either side of you.
It's terrifying for me, mate. It does. Alone the kids.
It does take a while to get used to. There's another thing where we are like polar opposites, you and I. I've started reading your book, which I've actually got a copy of, and you haven't even seen yet.
Yes, crazy.
We'll get to that soon. But in that, you talk about how growing up as like a preschool age kid, you loved going to your nana and granddad's farm, and when it was time to go back home again, like you'd hide from your parents because you wanted to stay on the farm.
Yeah,
I had a similar thing. I had my Auntie Robin and Uncle John, they had a dairy farm, and I was sent there on the school holidays. Fucking hated every minute of it. It's awful. Despised it. Fuck. The smell of silage, and you're out working, and I'd never get a good spot on the back of the tractor, so I was getting like cow shit flung up at me non-stop. Terrible. And Auntie Robin, she called me a city slicker. I was from Palmerston North, so it's not they were in Levinas, so Palmerston North's not really a city, but hated it.
Is that right?
What was the appeal for you?
Bloody good question. I think it's probably I had two older brothers that were quite a bit older than me, so they, when I started, from what I can remember, they were in the early teens and really involved in the actual farm work, and I idolised them massively. So, probably just wanted to be like them, and my uncle who ran the farm he was a bloody hoot, really, and he made everything fun. It never really seemed like hard work, even though it was. He always managed to have a laugh or make a game out of something or teach us something. So it was really interesting, and just whatever I can remember, whether I was 3 or 4 years old, it's just all I ever wanted to do was drive tractors and ride bikes and work with animals and do all those hard jobs on the farm were the best, like making hay in the summer. It was horrendously difficult, but there was something really I don't know, just
rewarding?
Yeah, rewarding and earthly about it, just working with your hands, I think, and particularly with the land and animals, there's just something really natural about it. It's whether it's in the blood or something, I don't know, but wasn't in your blood, obviously.
No, absolutely not. I'm like I am a city slicker now, so Auntie Robin was sort of right, and I'm one of these people, it's like, I love meat. Yeah. I want to see it in the packaging. I don't want to know where
see it on the plate.
Absolutely, that's it. So we've discussed all the things we don't have in common. But we do have a lot in common as well. Like we've both got this love of I suppose running and physical activity, and also we understand how that intertwines with mental health.
Yeah,
in a big way.
Yep, definitely. And it's been obviously a big part of your life now, and forever since I can remember. Even though I used to hate running, sport's been massive. I grew up, started playing rugby at the age of 5, and played every season right through until the body started giving up in my late 20s. And it's just been a part of my family and a part of my life. And I guess later on, once I couldn't play footy, running took over as the sport of choice. And it's been really it's an interesting journey when you start running.
It's not
seriously,
fun. It's not easy for anyone.
Everyone keeps saying that I make it look fun, or they don't find any fun in it. And I was like, it's not really fun that often. it's just painful and frustrating at times. But it's a good way to get to know yourself anyway.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I don't understand about you, and I suppose anyone that does like a physical job in running, is I sort of started running out of necessity because I was doing breakfast radio hours, and they're challenging hours, and they take it out of you. So I figured if I want longevity in this radio industry, something that's going to help me do this is being physically fit. Yeah. So I started running, but I don't know how after like a long day on the farm, surely the last thing you want to do is any more sort of physical activity. It's a physical job, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes it is the last thing you want to do. But the way I sort of look at it, like dairy farming's changed a lot in the last probably 15, 20 years.
How so? In what way?
It's just less physical. It's more mental. Like if I think back to when I used to help my uncle on his farm, 25 years ago, we're picking up hay bales and digging post holes. Every day was really physically demanding, every single day, and he was a really fit, strong guy. But when I think about my day now, a lot of days, a lot of hours in the tractor. We have post drivers, mechanical post drivers. Not too many dig posts anymore.
Oh, all those gadgets that you go to field days and buy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Metal disease, they call it.
What disease?
Metal disease.
What's that?
Just people buying metal tractors and gadgets to put on the tractor, basically. But
sorry, by the way, before you get any further, I know absolutely nothing about farming, so there's going to be a lot of dumb
explanations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like people with tech, I guess, buying fancy computers and gaming and that sort of thing. Farmers have the same deal with machinery sometimes. So it's much more of a mental tax now than a physical. And I sort of look at it like we have this winter period, or most dairy farms have their winter period where we go on holiday to Fiji. It's our quietest time of the year. We spend a bit more time on the couch, do less hours. And then we go straight into the hardest time of the year, which is calving. And you go from, you might do 50 hours a week of just cruising around the farm, not working too hard. And you can go straight into doing 80, 90, 100 hours even in the space of a couple of weeks. So it just changes really quickly. And that is the time of the year that's really physically demanding, you're picking up calves, manhandling cows if they're sick and that sort of thing, or pulling calves out when they need help. It is really physically demanding, but just the time that you spend outside every day working, and it's like I need to get fit for that, and it's something that I really found when I stopped playing rugby, how important that fitness was, and the difference between coming off the back of a rugby season being fit and strong, and then straight into calving. I could handle it quite easily. When I retired from rugby and had my first winter, I guess, since I could even remember, of not being fit, it was really noticeable straight away how important it was to be fit and strong, ready to go. So I sort of see the fitness I do throughout the year is like a bit of a pre-season, to be honest. Getting ready for calving, so it's
the physical demands.
Basically,
it's a funny thing, because with physical activity, the more you do, actually, the more energy you get. You think you're expelling all this energy, so you'll be more tired, but it doesn't actually work that way.
No, it doesn't. It's like, if you sit on the couch all day, you're going to be tired at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you've actually got to create your own energy, and getting up and doing something that you enjoy, something that's challenging as well. I always find, people when they're challenged with something they're passionate about or something that gives them purpose, that creates a whole bunch of energy in you. So it's important to recognise that and understand what brings you energy.
Yeah, so right. And it seems like you, I wanted to ask you something. It seems to me like you like taking part in events. I've seen you do some Instagram videos and reels and things and some TV appearances, and it looks like there's a wall of like race numbers and medals in the corner of the... But first of all, what room of the house is that?
So that was the lounge.
Oh, that is not great lounge decor. I thought that maybe it's a man cave or something. How did you get that past your wife?
No, it was actually a lot of those are hers.
Oh, are they?
And I must clarify, a lot of them are participation medals, not first or seconds or anything like that.
Of course, yeah.
But that was all, I guess, around for our own mental health. I guess recognising and being proud of what we've done in the past, and recognising what you were capable of. So a lot of people put that sort of like we had all that stuff in the drawer, basically sitting in storage in the cupboard, and it was sort of like, well, yeah, we should actually, sometimes you just need a reminder of what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And so to put them out there on display, it wasn't a bragging or anything like that.
It seems a little bragging.
it seems it, but we don't actually have like heaps of friends and stuff around. We're not sort of a little bit hermity, I guess you could say, but. It was all about us, and even for our kids, we've put them in a few 5K fun runs and that sort of thing, and they get to put their race number up on the wall, and they'll quite often go over and look at it or get their medal down and put it around their neck, and it's just something to be proud of, I think, and not be ashamed of, or we've got that tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand.
Oh, in a big way. Yeah.
Where we don't like to brag, and it's just seeing it as just being proud of what you've achieved and recognising what you've been through in the past, and that's what it was for us was just understanding, remembering those tough times. I remember the first time we did Waitomo trail race, which was 36 Ks. The amount of times we wanted to quit, but push through and finish. It's important to remember that you can do it. I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that really is. I think that's a real healthy way of looking at it as well. And there's probably a lot of people listening to this right now that take part in events and stuff and go, oh, okay, yeah, shit, I've got mine in a drawer or in a box somewhere, or whatever it may be. That's
absolutely
cool. And what you were saying about the Waitomo race, about how you want to quit, but you just keep going, put one foot in front of each other. I feel like there's like metaphors between like hard events like that and the challenges of day-to-day life.
Totally. And it wasn't actually... Running's probably the sort of that endurance type running was when I really recognised the parallels between your sport and your real life, because some days it's just being able to put that one foot in front of the other and to push through, and I guess understand that there is a finish line and that tough time doesn't last forever. I think that's really important, because when you're in the moment it feels like
it's never going to improve.
Yeah, when you're in a shitstorm, it just feels like that shitstorm's going to last forever. But there's always a finish line, or I like to think of it in boxing terms as well, as the round always ends. There's always going to be a moment where that storm clears, and
don't throw in the fucking towel.
Don't throw in the towel, man. It's being able to push through that adversity a bit and just hang on. With even if you can't walk, it's just stay in the race. You can sit down and have a breather and reassess, and I'm sure you've done it in the past. You have a gel or something, or a bit of food, or a bit of tailwind or something, and in 5 minutes you feel just that little bit better, and it gives you that spark to keep going. So it's finding those things in life, and the transfer of skills between sport to real life has been really important for me, and keeping on going.
Oh, who left their phone on? the bloody townie.
Bloody townie, eh?
Oh, Stephen from Dunedin. Used to call us on the radio show quite a bit.
I recognise that name.
All right. Hey, Stephen, I'm just in the middle of doing a podcast. I'll call you back later, mate.
Okay, because I'm just letting you know that times have been changed.
What?
The time of my flight has been changed now, so...
Oh, when you're coming to Auckland for the basketball?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Bye.
It's gold.
All right, flight mode it is. All right, okay. Kane Brisco, are you ready to see the finished version of your book for the first time in your life?
Yeah, bring it on, mate. I'm a bit nervy.
Here you go, Tools from the Top Paddock.
Here it is, crikey. Wow. It's, I just wouldn't have ever dreamed of writing a book, and here it is. It's unbelievable, actually. I don't know, it's quite overwhelming, eh? It's just, I've always seen myself as a very, very average person, and to hold my own bloody book in my hand is something quite, I don't know, I'm lost for words a little bit.
It's got to go in the corner of the lounge by the race numbers.
Yeah, I think we might have to put one copy there. I wouldn't want to see a stack of them there.
Okay, all right. Okay, so how does a kid from Taranaki that ends up just being a farmer end up in a position where you have a book publisher reaching out to you saying, "Hey, you should write a book"? How does this happen?
Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, we should go right back. It's to do with Farm Fit, right? And the success of Farm Fit.
Yeah,
okay, so how did Farm Fit come about? By the way, for anyone that is listening to this podcast that has no clue what Farm Fit is, how would you describe it?
I still actually struggle to describe it. So, I'll tell you. I guess the beginnings of it was I'd been through my own challenges, and we'll probably come back to this, but been through my own challenges mentally with farming, and got myself into a pretty bad place, I guess, and really struggled for a couple of years. But what helped drag me out of that was sport, basically. Got myself right, sort of got the farm going, functioning right, and then sort of looked around me and I thought, there were a lot of reasons, but I looked around me and I thought, well, I thought I was a pretty mentally tough, strong, typical Kiwi farmer, really. And I thought, shit, if I can go through that and find myself in that sort of place and find a way to get out of it, surely I can help pass that on to other people. And that was really the genesis of Farm Fit, and it just started as me inviting the neighbours around basically to come and do like a boot camp type session.
Like flipping tractor tyres and... Yeah,
well, it started out on just my driveway, mate. I had a few skipping ropes and some boxing gear, and I brought a few sandbags and a couple of little things, really. Nothing much, and just started doing, because I had a bit of experience with boxing and running, obviously, so I knew a bit about fitness and rugby. But I thought two young fellas might turn up that wanted to get a bit fitter for rugby, and I had, I think, 6 for the first session, and after a couple of weeks I had sort of 10 or 12 people of, just such a diverse range. We had, 18-year-old guys up to people in, farmers in their 50s and women and kids and teenagers, so it all got quite serious quite quickly, more than what I ever thought, and probably after about and off the top of my head, I think we were around about $400,000 mortgage, something like that, or just over, to buy everything, which doesn't seem that big when you look at house prices these days. But I'd pretty recently returned from an OE, so I'd only actually been farming, dairy farming, for 3 years when I got that job. So I didn't have heaps of money. We were actually outside the lending criteria for the bank, so there was but I guess the outlook for dairy farming was really good then. So they were pretty easy to give money. So there was quite a lot of financial pressure on me. I'd not long met my now wife, Nicole. So got into this job, owning cows, a lot of responsibility, but a lot of excitement. My first season was the record milk price of $8.40, which was 2013. And so, that was pretty exciting because I was like, money was just flowing in, things were good. The hard part I was finding was the farm I'd moved on to was a little bit, I wouldn't say run down, but there were a lot of problems there.
Okay.
So that created quite a bit of stress, and I'm an absolute perfectionist. So the farms I'd worked on previously were really, really nice farms. Well, everything was well done, and I like to have all my I's dotted and T's crossed, and I was just finding in that first year that there were a lot of problems to fix that I couldn't quite figure out. But everything was all good because we were making a lot of money at $8.40 a kilo of milk solid, so things were really positive. But at the end of that season, we just had our first child, which added another element, becoming a dad. And then the payout decided to slip away under our feet, basically, and over the course of 18 months, it dropped from $8.40 down to $3.90, I think. So our income
Okay, more than
Yes,
half.
more than half.
Yeah. Is this a cyclical thing in farming?
It is a bit, yeah, but that was really extreme.
Right,
That was a super extreme example, and no one had even. I think the highest milk price before that $8.40 was like $7 or $7.10.
Right,
so it was a record high, and then they hadn't seen a price of $3.90 for probably 10 years. Yeah. And you know the price of everything goes up over time. So it was a hugely stressful time. You know, I did so many bloody budgets, and all of them just came out shit house. So I ended up stopping. You know, everything was in the red. There was nothing really we could do. And it was at that time I decided to quit playing rugby. I wanted to spend more time with my family and focus more on the farm and just sort of bring everything in and do the bare necessities. And it was great. Like it was great not having to play rugby and you know, not waking up on Sunday with a sore body and a hangover. But you know, I got myself unfit. I didn't have I wasn't connecting with my mates at footy anymore, so I was sort of isolated myself.
Yeah, you lose that network, I guess.
You did, yeah. And it was, I'd played it. I'd played for that club for a long time, and I was a senior player in that club at the time, and that was actually quite hard to. I probably didn't realise how much I needed that. Just needed that escape off the farm, and
so it's less about the rugby really, and just more about the community.
Absolutely, I think probably a big reason I played rugby was for the aftermatch, really, and that might sound bad, but
Oh no, I feel like that's probably what keeps a lot of old dogs that aren't really playing at a super competitive level in the game.
Yeah,
in any team sport.
I'm a really competitive person. I love the footy, but having a good time with the boys afterwards, and getting a bit of male bonding, it's a pretty important thing for guys, I think. So I probably didn't realise how much that affected me, and just when I think back, that lack of fitness, I remember about a week into calving. So this was the first time I'd been unfit, starting calving, and I remember a week and I was like, oh, fucked up here. I could just at the end of the day, I was just buggered. And I'd never felt that before, especially right at the start. And I sort of swore to myself then I would never be unfit for calving again. And from that, it just sort of snowballed, man. I just, fatigue set in real early. I started making poor decisions on the farm, the stress of being a new dad and the financials. And, I was just bleeding money out of every orifice, I worked out that season, I think... roughly every hour I was paying myself minus $6 an hour. It was just, It was just ridiculous. So, and I just lost the passion for farming too. I remember it.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I distinctly remember saying to myself, I started blaming other people. I blamed the bank for giving me the loan. I blamed my boss for giving me the job, and I sort of thought to myself, if someone could just walk in and just take my cows off me, take the mortgage, and I'd just walk away with a suitcase full of clothes, I'd be happier, And that was from the kid that grew up just, not wanting to leave the farm to get to that point. I was like, damn, this is not good. Yeah, that's.
I suppose that not lashing out mentality, but that blame mentality. I suppose that's human instinct. It
is, man. You see it everywhere.
Yeah,
and it wasn't actually until I probably got myself into a real shit place where it was so hard to get up in the morning and go and milk the cows, and it was only the fact really that probably two things. I had my kids that needed food on the table, and the responsibility I felt towards my cows to look after them. They were probably the only two things that kept me going at that point. And it wasn't actually. I remember I'd probably been in this place for maybe a year of just hating farming and hating my life and blaming other people.
And when you were like that, what were you like as a husband and a dad?
I'm pretty shit house.
Yeah, were you?
Yeah, for a while there.
It's funny how you generally save your worst behaviour for those people that mean the most to you.
I think I wasn't a bad dad, but I think I definitely took it out on the wife. You turn angry, a lot of it came out as anger. So pretty short. I've generally got a really long fuse. But probably turned quite short.
Yeah, and just frustration,
Because I blamed her as well, just for stupid shit, I was just blaming everyone else except for myself, and it wasn't. I came home one day after about a year of this, and I had a bitch and a moan at the wife about something, about farming, and she turned around. At the time, I was absolutely ropeable with her, but she just said, well, you chose this. And it hurt, it cut deep, I tell you. And, there were a few words were exchanged probably after that. From what I remember, it didn't go down well. But, I went away, and that probably sat with me for a few weeks, and I probably had to actually man up and accept that she was bloody right about that. And that was a really big turning point, I think, was just that acceptance that, I applied for the bank loan, I applied for the job, I wanted to be here, and I was exactly where I put myself.
It's harder because things like the milk payout, there's things like that are variables that are completely out of your control, and there's nothing you can do about that. But this is a Navy SEALs thing that I got from the David Goggins book. It's like just owning as much shit as what you can.
Yeah,
and it's the best place to be. And like you can blame anyone you want, but it's not going to change the situation, is it?
Exactly, and it was really that moment of acceptance that I became quite self-aware of where I actually was in my life, and the sort of mental state I was in, and set about owning it, I guess, and it then became like, right, what am I going to do about it? And I actually I turned back to something that had helped me when I was coming out of my teenage years, and that was boxing. And I actually I just said to Nicole, I was just like, I've got to get this out of me. I was still really angry about the situation, but I was like, I need to get off farm. I had an itch, I guess, that needed to be scratched. So I ended up, starting to train for a boxing fight again. And as difficult as it was, I think I had to drive an hour up to New Plymouth to a boxing gym. So I was doing that once a week and training most nights of the week. But instantly it started getting me fit again, and I lost. I think I'd put on 10 kilos in that winter. So I got back to, I think, 81 kilos, got lean and mean and started feeling good about myself. And the way I sort of explain it is like I'd finish work at like 5:30 in the afternoon after starting at 4 a.m. and I'd be excited to get into my ute and drive for an hour to New Plymouth and go and punch people in the face. But what I found was that 2-hour training, I didn't think about the farm once. And that was literally the only time I could shut off was when I was training. Because
is that a nature of the sport of boxing, that you have to be in the moment?
Yeah, you get punched in the face a lot if you're not. It was. It was probably, I think probably when you're like playing rugby and that, there's a team around you, you can still sort of be away with the fairies a bit and hide in the team, so to speak. But boxing, when you're sparring or just the training's so intense that you have to be in that moment and giving it 110%. And I think it was like the right medicine I needed at that time to switch off. And I'd find even I'd come back late at night buggered, I'd actually wake up feeling a bit refreshed, like I'd mentally just had a break. Because the hardest thing about farming is it's just 24 hours a day. Like you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, and first thing in the morning you're thinking about cows.
Just thinking about the jobs you got to do the next day?
There's been times when we had like you have a really wet patch in the spring. Like we had one a couple of years around this time actually, and like it just rained every frickin' day, and it just makes life very difficult to farm. And like you'd wake up and you'd hear the rain, and it would just be like, might as well have been bloody gunfire, It's just it was horrible, It's just you just know that your day's going to be hard and shit, and it's going to be wet again, and you're just worrying constant worry about your animals and the jobs that need to be done, and not enough time to do them, and you add financial pressure onto that or relationship pressure, and it's quite overwhelming. And once the mind starts whirling away, it's hard to bloody stop it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's easier said than done. People say to switch off. So you never. So it was just the boxing for you. You never sought any professional help. You never got any counselling. You never went to a doctor.
No, it was all. It's just not the done thing.
In rural communities.
Yeah, it was. That was. We're talking probably 5 or 6 years ago at the worst of it, and it was. There's still a massive stigma around it.
But I mean, if you can work through the stuff on your own, then that's fine. Go
ahead
and do it.
The way I sort of see it is it's this whole thing started a journey for me, and a lot of the counselling I've received in the last 12 months has actually been going back through past shit, and unravelling that fully, and because you don't realise how some of those early things in life affect your decision making 20 years from now, and whatever things you go through in life, they have a really big impact, and you're not really aware of them, I don't think, until you actually go back, particularly with a professional, and sort of unpack it a bit.
You touch upon this in your book. You want to talk about this a little bit now? Okay.
Yeah,
because
go for it, mate. I'm an open book.
What you're talking about is very, very traumatic that happened very early in your life. So I'm not surprised that this is one of those things that came back and reared its head. It was like sexual abuse. How old were you?
I was around about 9.
And how old was the older kid?
He was a teenager, so 14, 15, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And this went on for like half a year or something.
Yeah, it was over an extended period. It happened, there were a few incidents here, and it's the one, I hummed and hard for a long time about putting this in the book, just because there's a lot of people that don't know about it.
As in, like friends,
family and friends.
right.
Yeah. There's not a lot of people that know about it at all, so it was quite a hard thing to put in there. But I've actually talked to other males with similar experiences, and it's like, I think I put it in the book, but I thought I was like 1 in a billion, that I was the only kid that this ever happened to. But I think I read a stat not long ago that it's like 1 in 7 males will suffer some form of sexual abuse in their life, and females is like 1 in 3 or something like that. It's far too common. So I wanted to put it in there because I felt so alone for so many years. I didn't tell anyone until I was probably 18, 19, I think.
As in no one?
No one, yeah.
What, just like guilt and shame, or?
Yeah, I thought it was my fault for a long time. I felt a lot of shame about letting that happen to me. I guess I grew up in a...
How do you mean, like not fighting back?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. No, for real.
He was a fucking teenager.
Yeah, but like I don't want to say anything bad about my brothers because they're awesome, but I had 2 really tough, bigger, strong brothers that I idolised, and I was like, I'd be so ashamed that I didn't, kill him or something. Like that's sort of the role models I had. I guess my uncle on the farm is your typical tough, stoic Kiwi male, and when I think about it, it was definitely shame about letting that happen, and I think back now to that kid, and I often blamed myself for it, but I judged it with the knowledge I had now, and I guess I probably didn't. I didn't even think about it for a long time, or didn't want to think about it for a lot of those reasons. But it wasn't probably until I started boxing at the age of 18 that I was able to go back to it, I guess, and use it as a bit of...
You talk about this in your book. You say part of the reason you took up boxing was so that if you ever pass this guy in the street,
totally,
you'd be able to knock his lights out.
Yeah, because that was that thing of I felt so shit about not fighting it harder, and that was a lot of the shame and the guilt, and like I said, I've heard it from other victims before as they feel like it's their fault, and it's I think back now and I think how fucking stupid is that, but at the time, as a kid, you just can't process. Like, I didn't even know what was happening, really. I didn't know if it was how bad it was or how wrong it was. It's really hard to process at that age. Probably a little bit different if you get to it, I guess, 3 or 4 years older. When you're a bit mature, you can understand things a bit more. But I think about my daughter now. She's 8, so I was just a little bit older than her.
Age,
it's God, I'd hate to think what I'd do to someone if you found that out. But I just think of her, and I'm just like, there's no way she could fight back against
someone that's
even a boy her same age. So it's silly, but it's just how the mind works. And so I wanted to put it in there just to so someone else might read it that's been through something, so they don't feel alone, I guess, and know that it's not the end of their life, or not the end of their life as they know it, that they can use it as a positive, I guess, because it's hard, but it's a part of who I am now, and I wouldn't have the courage to do the things that I've done without having gone through that either, in a strange way. It's I like to think that it's made me something more rather than taking everything away from me.
And the perpetrator, he's going to read this, right? He's definitely going to read it.
Probably.
Yeah, like he surely he wakes up every day and thinks, is this the day there's going to be a knock at the door?
Yeah, and I've often thought about it. I'm pretty tempted, but I know that
it's. I mean, you talk in the book about your reasons for not going to the police and not going through.
Yeah.
But isn't it nice to know that even if you don't do anything about it, you've let go of this secret, which was no fault of your own. He's still got this secret, and every time the phone rings or the door knocks.
Absolutely, and it's not something I realised until I was older that he's got to live with it as well. I've tried to turn it into something positive. I can't imagine there's any way that he can, and he's got to, whether he regrets it or not, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life. And it's a strange. One day I'll knock on his door, maybe. He might listen to this podcast and just get the sweats up him with it. But it's quite likely that one day I've actually dreaded it. Crossing paths. New Zealand's a small place. Crossing paths with him. Just how I'd.
How do you think you'd be like? Freeze or?
I probably would, to be honest.
Yeah. You don't know.
As confident as I am now, it would be quite an awkward thing. I'm pretty restrained, but I think I'd definitely say something. Who knows?
I mean, you'd get away with giving him a hiding, wouldn't you? What's he going to do? Go to the police?
Couple of slaps. But that was one of the reasons why I didn't go to the police, because it's my word against his. And it's I totally understand. Whether people do report these things or don't, I understand both sides of the coin. It's a really hard place to be in, and really hard to go through, I guess, that process of dragging it through court and airing your secrets in a way that's out of your control. I guess, with putting it in the book, it is in my control. I've told the parts of it that I want to, so I can control my story around that to a point, I guess. I still walk into rooms, particularly around men, and I screen everyone, because I'm...
Is that right? Like just subconsciously?
Yeah, it's just I'm looking for who's the threat, and that's something I've done ever since. Is just you get really good at, I guess, at picking up a vibe or dodgy people or suspicious sort of characters. You just get really good at just screening people for that, and that's just one of the consequences of having something taken out of your control like that.
I suppose that this was always going to come to a head. If it wasn't the milk payout and financial stress on the farm, it was always going to rear its head. So,
And I think going through my once I'd sort of discovered boxing as an 18-year-old, and I thought I'd sort of dealt with a lot of things and created a lot of toughness and resilience and all those things that we need in life. I never actually thought I would get to a bad place. As naive as that may sound to a lot of people, it's just, I think that's pretty common for a lot of people. I was a fairly happy sort of a chap for the most part, but I never thought I'd get to that place, and to actually get the right realisation that you are there is a pretty big wake up call that it can literally happen to anyone. And the more people, it's great that you've had so many sports stars on there, people that you look up to that think never deal with this stuff. It's so important for them to actually tell their story, and so empowering for a lot of people too.
Yeah, so I mean, what I've been through is absolutely nothing compared to what you went through as a 9-year-old boy. But I thought I got through unscathed as well. But then there's just a bunch of shit I went through. We had a family adoption that turned pretty bad, and relationship breakup, and years of fertility treatment and stuff. Yeah. And I suppose I just didn't deal with it. It was probably like, oh well, onwards and upwards. Yeah. You know, what's next? And then if you don't address the stuff, eventually it's gonna
comes back to bite you sooner or later.
It does.
It's one of those things. But everyone's story is their own, and your trauma is all you know. Like I don't expect other people to. I don't want sympathy and poor you sort of thing from putting that in the book, and I don't want anyone to think that their trauma is or challenges are not worthy or something, because you only know what you know, and you've only been through what you've been through. So But it is. If I could put a message out there, particularly to the fellas, is you actually got to deal with the shit. When otherwise it does come back and bite you. All those things add up over time, one little thing here and one little thing there, they all just pile on top of you, and sooner or later you're carrying the weight of the world, and you can only do that for so long.
Yeah. I like to use I don't know if my analogies are any good or not, but it's like having a workout and then getting your sweaty gym gear and chucking it in a bag and putting it in the boot of your car, and then getting more gym gear, chucking it in there.
Yeah.
Eventually, like, the smells are only going to get worse and worse, and
you're going to starts growing some funky stuff.
Yeah, you're going to need to deal with it one day. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Man, you've been through some stuff, and when you came here, your wife and your two kids, who are very tired because you've just had a flight from Fiji, they went for a walk. Now that you're a dad and you've got a son and a daughter, do you kind of wish you told your own parents at the time what was going on?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I got to a point, I guess, where I felt like I didn't want to tell them, because I now know as a parent how you would feel getting told that, 20 years down the track or whatever it was.
Because you just want to protect your kids, right?
Absolutely. So it's I can just picture one of my kids coming and saying that. I'd be absolutely heartbroken and furious, and because that's your job, is to protect them. But it's absolutely not their fault, and that's the hard thing to understand as a parent. They had no control over that, and it was if I could go back in time, I would, but it was just too much guilt and shame to do it at the time, and it's one of those things that's sort of sad but true. But I think from the victims that I've talked to, we all go through that same feeling, and it's you think back at it and you think it's so unjustified. So unjustified to feel like that.
Oh, completely. It makes no sense.
Absolutely no sense, and I can't figure out for the life of us why our brain does that. And, some of it must be around that stigma of being tough enough or whatever it is. Particularly, I think, for males is like we said earlier, not fighting back or not being able to protect yourself, I think, was a big thing. And that's like I absolutely idolised Mike Tyson because I wanted that, to have that persona of being able to protect myself. And
he was the baddest man on the planet.
He was the baddest man on the planet, and I wanted to be that because then no one would, even try. That was a big part of it. And,
even with that lisp, no one's teasing Mike Tyson.
No, you'd be a brave man too, wouldn't you? So yeah, it's interesting. That point in life, as shit as it was, it's led me down a positive path, and I'm thankful that I found. Really thankful that I found an outlet to express it in a positive way. If you look through, people that have had addictions in life, a lot of it stems from a trauma of something similar that they've found a negative outlet for it. Everyone needs an outlet for it. So I'm extremely thankful that I found something positive out of it. And when I think back, that was probably the little seed that got planted to start Farm Fit.
Yeah, right, right. Subliminally?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think it's, I wouldn't have thought it 10 years ago, but, when I think back to, when people ask me how I started Farm Fit, I usually go back to that. That was a catalyst for something. And it's just taken 25 years to sort of get there, I guess, but... Yes.
How old are you now? What are you?
35.
Yeah. You still got years on me. So I'm 49, and I've just like the last few years discovered the importance of having deeper conversations with people.
Yeah.
I suppose like showing a bit of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I understand how important it is, and I understand how good it feels when you do it. But I still do struggle with some of my mates. Like you get together
100%.
and we can smash out a couple of bottles of wine and just have shallow talk before we get to the deeper stuff. And
totally.
Then you see women, they get together and they meet other women that they've never even met before, and straight into that deep stuff. Why is it so hard, eh? Because it is. It's cathartic. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably one of the best things about writing this book, was actually going back through life and revisiting that time in my life and understanding the emotions of it, but also the good stuff that came after it, but really like sitting down and appreciating everything, it was quite cool actually to see everything tie in together. And it's sort of like a timeline of life, really. And you actually sit back and you think, oh, this happened because of that. And, I met that person then and that became something else. And, it's quite a cool thing to actually sit down and look back at your life and understand it a little bit better,
Yeah. Understand why, what makes you and why you tick.
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
you do the things you do. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a really important thing to do.
Yeah,
self-awareness.
Right, I suppose. Are you quite good with gratitude?
I'm a lot better now than I used to be. Yeah, like 5 or 6 years ago, I probably didn't even know what the word was. to in all honesty, I'm still. I think most males still have that. She'll be right attitude, just not even think about that. But I find it quite a powerful thing to look back on your day or your year or something and really pick out some positives. It's quite an empowering thing, and even better than that is reliving times when you felt gratitude or witnessed it, and that's something I do really regularly now. Is I've found that super powerful. Rather than thanking a roof over your head, is actually think back to a time when you received a gift or something special, or a time that someone showed that they cared about you. Something like that is super powerful to replay that story. So I'm pretty good at doing that automatically now and reflecting on the day. And it seems silly. I wouldn't have picked myself sitting here as a farmer talking about gratitude or journaling or anything like that. It's quite an odd thing, but
it's great though. It's great because I suppose for me, like I got to a position where I was very financially driven and I was earning fantastic money. I really enjoyed my job, but it was quite stressful, I guess. But I had all these things, and these I'd buy something new, and it would give me like a momentary. I don't know if it's a dopamine hit or a rush of serotonin or something. Yeah. And then I'd feel flat again. Yeah. And then I realised like the key to gratitude is just being happy with less, actually.
Yeah, and it's that long-term thinking, is super important. We often look for those short-term hits, whether it's a rum at the end of the night or buying a new toy, a jet ski or something like that. But, it's...
a frame TV, 65 inches out there, I'll have you know.
It's understanding that long-term hit is way more important, And same as a bar of chocolate, it's my weakness. If I'm going for a short-term hit, it's a tasty bit of food, but it's really the long-term thinking that gets us through life.
Yeah, sure is.
Stuff, yeah.
Sure is. Well, you seem to have that right. Your kids, your son in particular, he looks pretty. I met him just before. He looks pretty pissed off with you at the moment because he's very tired. And you told me you got them out of bed first thing yesterday, wanting to see a sunrise in Fiji. Yeah. And I feel like that's one of the. I don't know. Maybe he's too young to appreciate it, but maybe years from now he'll look back and go, "Shit, that was a cool moment with Dad."
Yeah, I was actually surprised they got out of bed. To be fair, I was actually really happy. They both had. Quite a positive attitude about getting up that early and because we had to hike up a bit of a hill, it was a 15-minute walk up a hill at 6 in the morning. They both really enjoyed it, and I think they've probably just got to that age and they've seen me, or they've sort of had me drag them along to enough stuff now that they're maybe just clicking that it is something special and to pay attention to those little things in nature, because that's I distinctly remember when I was struggling on the farm was. One of the other things I did was actually I had to remember why was I farming. I had to ask myself that question because I wanted to give it all away, and so I had to think back to when I was a kid on my uncle's farm, just having a ball and just enjoying that farm life. And I sort of made a promise to myself to that was why I was farming, to replicate that for my kids. So It was. I made that a priority because I was working so hard on the bloody farm and leaving the kids at home because they slow you down a bit. So it was actually, I had to stop and sort of smell the roses a bit and, go and pat the cows and do all those things with the kids that I liked. And that was the reason why I was farming. So it's a pretty cool thing to teach your kids how to be grateful for those things. And I try and hammer it home. It's hard though when they're living a life that's so different now with tablets and phones and YouTube.
All the things.
Oh, it's crazy, but it's so important. What's really interesting is Fiji, you go there, they're the happiest bloody people I've ever met, eh?
Oh, they're the nicest people in the world.
And it's not so much the place, it's the people that keeps me going back there.
100%.
Sorry, it's only my second trip, but, I'm going to keep going back there because they're amazing people. But a lot of them have got absolutely frickin' nothing, eh? And, you think about that, and then I think about my kids who can be... they're a bit stroppy sometimes, and
if they don't get what they want.
If they don't get what they want, sometimes they need their, they want to watch their TV show or something. It's the end of the world if they can't do it. And I think, how have we overcomplicated life?
Yeah.
You think about those Fijian people, man. A lot of them have got absolutely nothing, but they're so happy, so grateful, and so positive about life. And I look around us in the society we live in now in New Zealand and America, Western culture, and it's like there's not that many people that are happy or that friendly. Like you walk down the street, even in New Plymouth now, I went for a run there along the foreshore. And
that's a great track, by the way.
Yeah, I'm that guy, though, that'll, give you the eyebrows or a g'day or something. That's just how I've grown up. And no one was they were looking at me like I was a bloody idiot when I was saying g'day. And it was only the older people that said hello back. And I was just like, man, this is sad, this is not the world I want to live in. I want to walk down the street and say g'day to people or stop for a yarn, and that's normal because that was the New Zealand that I grew up in. But you just don't get that anymore. You get looked at. I was getting some weird looks saying g'day to people. It was horrible.
I must admit, I do that the same here in Auckland where I run it. If I see not so much walkers, but other runners, someone running the other direction, I'll always give them a wave.
Yeah.
And, because, here we are, we're out doing the same thing at the same time. What are the fucking chances?
Yeah.
And the amount of people that are, I don't know, they're in the zone so they don't even see you, or they give you a look like, do I know you? It's really, really odd. But I really want to make the friendly wave a thing again.
I think it's got to come back. And even driving on rural roads now, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you're driving on a rural road out in the country, just wave. When you go past a car, whatever it is, one finger or two just up over the steering wheel. Make sure it's the right way around. But, that's the New Zealand I grew up in, where if you're driving down a rural road, everyone gave someone a wave or, acknowledged their existence. But even that's happening less.
Yeah.
And it's sad, man. It actually, I find it quite sad that that's happening to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
I think we can probably learn a lot from the Fijian mindset, and that comes back to what I was saying before about instead of wanting more, just being happier with less. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Absolutely.
By the way, good on you for going to Fiji as well, because my Uncle John, like growing up, I don't remember him ever having a holiday, and I feel like in the rural communities back in the 80s and 90s, it was almost like a badge of honour to talk about how many years you've gone without having a break.
Still is.
Is it a thing?
Yeah, a lot of people. I keep a pretty close eye on the dairy farming pages in New Zealand, and some people wear that as a badge of honour. Haven't had a day off for 6 years, or all these sorts of things, and I'm just like, you're an idiot.
Life is passing you by.
One of the things I learnt from boxing, there's a famous commentator, boxing trainer. He actually trained Mike Tyson when he was a teenager, and it's about being tough. And we have this idea in our mind, this stoic toughness of the Kiwi male. And that you don't say anything, you don't take a day off, particularly in farming, you get injured, you just keep bloody working, you get sick, you just work through it. And that's all very well. But actually, if you're smart about things and you do take a day off, heaven forbid, or have an off-farm activity or get fit for calving, do these little things that are smart, do a journal, you actually become tougher because you don't need to rely on just being a hard bastard anymore. You've got all these other tools that you can pick up and use. And, when things do really get tough, sometimes you do need to tough things out, but it's there and it's intact. And this boxing trainer, he likened it to hitting a stone with a hammer. A stone's really hard, it's tough, but sooner or later, if you just keep chipping away at it, it's going to crack.
Right.
It might not be the 100th time it gets hit, it might be the 10,000th time, but sooner or later it's going to start cracking and it's not going to be tough anymore. So you wear it out, and that's something I've really discovered the last probably 6 years is to be smarter, and that's a lot of what I wanted to do with the book is give people some tools to use that aren't just being tough, and it's not just putting your head down and carrying on. It's actually picking up the phone and talking about things and working through things and you just become so much, you not only do you become a better farmer, you become a better person and a better husband or a better father or a better wife or whatever job you do. So we need to change the mentality around that and actually be smarter about how we live our lives now, rather than just relying on tough.
Yeah, right. I love that. I love that. Right. Okay. We should wrap this up. And I don't know if there's a simple answer to this, but for anyone that's listening to this right now, that's in a good place. I feel like that's the time where you should start doing the work. Know that tough times in your life are going to come at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more prepared you are, the better. Even though when you're feeling great and life's going good, the last thing you want to do is like start a fucking journal. It just seems unnecessary, right?
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, for anyone that's in that position, rural or otherwise, like what would your key pointers be to them? Where can they start?
Look, I sum it up pretty simply, and I look at my physical and mental health as a table. Every table has 4 legs, and they're the sort of the pillars that hold up your health. And I look at it as stress, so filtering out the stress you don't need in life, dealing with the stress, in a healthy way. Don't go and sink a dozen of piss. Go and actually, solve the problems, talk about it, deal with it in a healthy way, so that it's not a stress anymore. Some sort of movement. It can be anything from yoga to game of hockey, surfing. I'm all about people just getting out and using their bodies in some form of nature. I think that's really important to do it in our natural setting. We're human beings, we're not robots. So get out and move, look after your body and that movement, because it does disappear as you age. I've started to find. Sleep, super important, particularly for people that work funny hours. Farmers, shift workers, is having a sleep routine. Without sleep, you make pretty poor decisions about everything, basically. So that's been super important to me to have a good routine. And then what you consume, not only what we put in our mouths, but what we listen to and what we watch and who we hang around. The environment we create around us, we soak up like a sponge, and it's super important to be aware that can be a really negative, feeder for our headspace. So trying to watch what you watch is super important, especially these days in social media. And if you can do a reasonable job on those 4 things, I think just have one thing for each of those table legs that you can look towards to help you out. I think that goes a long way to keeping you above the line, so to speak.
Yeah, I love it. Good advice. But in saying that, a box of piss and a couple of episodes of Love Island every now and then don't. And yes, social media is a funny one, because it can be very negative. But then there's people like you with your Farm Fit account doing good stuff.
Yeah, mate, what I noticed was I used to be a consumer. So you go on Facebook. Like I said earlier, I didn't post anything. I just consumed whatever was out there, and you don't realise how negative that can be. Like I remember, when I was struggling was a time when. I think it was Safe and Greenpeace were just absolutely attacking dairy farmers, and I sort of felt like the All Blacks when they lost the World Cup. Like everyone just fucking hated them, mate. Like imagine being that All Black, You're doing something that you love for your country, but everyone bloody hates you for it, and that was actually really hard to take, because it was everywhere. It was on the 6 p.m. news. It was on Facebook. Wherever you looked, farmers were just bastards and assholes, and they hated their cows and hated New Zealand, and I was like, fuck off! I love my country.
I'm the backbone of this country.
Yeah. I'm trying to feed the world, man. When you think about farming New Zealand, it was the pioneers of the Europeans that came over and turned it into an industry, and I'm really proud of that. So it was really, really bloody hard to see that being attacked, and me, and a lot of farmers felt like this, is getting lumped into the bottom 2% that were doing a shit job of it. So it can really feed into that headspace. And what I've found with creating Farm Fit is I became a creator, not a consumer. So I just scroll less. I don't have the time or energy to absorb a lot of that negative shit. And you really pay attention to who you follow and that consumption of what you're actually consuming. I stopped watching the news like a year ago. It it's just all negative and shit a lot of the time. So it's
kind of, yeah, and it's designed for it's an hour of content for what TV1 or TV3 think is going to sell ads.
yeah, exactly.
That's it. Try and change, because you can't avoid social media, but try and change your algorithms. Follow FarmFit.
Absolutely.
If you see someone that constantly posts good quotes, like them more, and then you'll get more of that in your feed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, change the algorithm.
Yeah. You gotta have control of who you're following. That's the one thing I like about Instagram, actually, other than Facebook, is I think there's more control over who you follow, and you don't tend to get random shit generating into your feed anymore, although I have noticed it a fair bit more lately. But I wasn't even on Instagram before FarmFit. It was I'm pretty new to it, but just understanding who you're following, and if they make you feel bad, fucking unfollow them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as easy as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep life simple.
All right, Kane Brisco, brand new book, Tools for the Top Paddock. Congratulations, man. You must look at the cover of that, and actually, you take that if you want. You take that.
No. Yeah.
Some reading for the plane back to the nacky.
I actually look really fit and healthy in this one.
Yeah, good to see you wear your best gears for the cover. Dirty old Canterbury shorts and
Absolutely, mate.
What is it, a Ridgeline? Ridgeline shirt?
No, that's my own shirt.
Oh, is it?
It's got the FarmFit brand on it.
Yeah.
No, that's standard attire, mate. I'm shorts all year, so it was. They wanted the normal look.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you're bursting with pride, and you should be. It's a true honour that you've got to this point. Love what you're doing with FarmFit, and keep it up, man. You've done the work.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you getting me on, and being able to get some average rural New Zealand chat in there.
Thanks, it's been an eye-opener. We'll stop recording and then you can explain what Three Waters is to me.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
Kane Brisco, thank you very much for listening all the way through. If you want to learn more about Kane, you can Google his book, Tools for the Top Paddock. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe, follow, like, and even give it a rating or review. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, really appreciate the support. This may sound a little bit cheesy, but it has been a tough hustle this year. This podcast, it's like building a business from scratch. So on those hard weeks, the love and the support for the podcast really has kept me going. So if that's you, thanks so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And if you've got any feedback, I take everything on board, good or bad. You can message me, domharveynz@gmail.com, or flick me a message on Instagram, domharveynz. All right, thanks, team.